What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations, and I'm the host of Epic Conversations, 2020 Best Podcast News Award winner, 2018 Innovation Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. I also co-host and co-produce the only online show in the world for dads and fathers that's sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care. And as always, I like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. Oh, I also forgot being involved with the Dove Men Care and broadcasting the only online show for dads and fathers in the world that's sponsored by them. That's in 2022 and 2021. And in 2022 and 2021, we reached out directly and indirectly to over 100,000 fathers around the world. And should I say it? It's going on again in 2024. I can't even keep track of years anymore. So yes, so that's going to continue on till next year. That is outstanding. So little secret that you got for tuning in today. Before we get down to introducing our new friend, some homework. Please feel free to subscribe to the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube and hit the notification button. So subscribe and notify so you get notified of upcoming Epic Conversations, because I'm the home of Epic Conversations and I'm the host of Epic Conversations. Also, follow the Dr. Vibe Show on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. Also, too, if you would like to advertise your business, product, or service on the platform, please feel free to contact me at dr.vibe at the drvibeshow.com. One of the things we always like to do on the Dr. Vibe Show is introduce new friends. And we have a new friend for you today. So I'm going to give her proper introduction, though we've met via email. This is the first time we're meeting, at least face-to-face visually. Alice Wiafe, president of Black Mental Health Canada, has served as a speaker, talk show host, wife, mother, author, associate professor, but most importantly, a student of life. For the last 15 years, she has been a consultant of anger management and has had the privilege of supporting hundreds of men and women through their emotional healing journey. She now teaches how we can use difficult relationships to help us strive towards wholeness, purpose, and a better quality of life. She holds a master's degree in counseling psychology from the Adler School of Professional Psychology and is completing her doctorate in psychology from Ryokan College. I got that right. I was more concerned getting her last name right. That's the most important thing. According to Alice, one of the most fulfilling aspects of being a speaker is the opportunity to connect with real people with real problems. She draws from a decade of working with individuals who struggle with anger and other painful emotions. Through the use of her personal stories and practical strategies, she is able to provide concrete solutions to those who suffer emotionally. She invites us inside her own personal struggle with anger and resentment as she enlightens individuals step by step on how to escape the destructive emotional patterns in their lives. So Alice is joining us today to talk about Black Mental Health Canada urges collective actions to tackle the concerning mental health of Black Canadians. And also she's going to talk a little about Black Mental Health Canada and also about a big gala the organization has coming up. So it's time for her to come up on board because I've done enough already. I think I'm going to take off the rest of the day. Alice, what's going on? How are you?
I'm good, Dr. Vibe. Good to be here.
Great to meet you finally, somewhat visually face-to-face. How's your day going?
Not bad, not bad. The weather's not as cooperative, but everything else seems to be all right. So it's not bad.
Quick question. How did I do on a scale of 0 to 10 with your last name?
I jumped you up to 7.5. 7.7. You did better.
Okay.
0.5. Better.
I took the 0.5. I'll take a 0.1. I'll put 0.01.
Better than most people do. So you know what? It's a big deal.
I love to be above the curve. So good to have a conversation with you today. Looking forward to it. And let's have some fun. So for our friends and family of the Dr. Vibe Show, share a little bit about your background. Great professional background, but what's some of the other stuff? Where were you born, grew up, etc.? Can we share some of that share?
So I'm born in Scarborough.
I live in Scarborough.
It's a long time ago.
What schools did you go to?
I didn't go to school in Scarborough. I left to go back to Ghana when I was 4.
Okay.
So by the time school started, I'd left Scarborough.
Okay.
And so lived in Ghana for 4 years and then came back to Canada, and then moved to Winnipeg. So I was there for a couple of years and moved back to
Oh,
Toronto.
you love you got out of Winnipeg quick with that winter weather. Okay, go
Well,
on.
think about it. Like from Ghana to Winnipeg, like that's a huge.
Yeah, like
That's
Jesus. Okay, hold on a second. Scarborough, which is part of Toronto,
right.
we cold. Then you go to
Right.
Ghana, you don't have to wear much clothing, and
Right.
then you go to Winnipeg.
Well, that's it. It was there were hard times back then, so we didn't have much options.
Okay, understood,
Yeah,
understood,
my mom had
understood.
actually come back to Toronto before us, and there wasn't much happening at that
Mm.
time. So Winnipeg presented some opportunities, and that's where she went. And then she invited us up about a year or so after. We stayed there for a couple of years and moved back to Toronto in '85, and I've been here ever since.
Mother, how tell us about your mom.
My mom is a typical African woman. She thinks that she has a certain role to play within the family. She's strong, though, very strong, but very traditional values. She's been my teacher uh, when it comes to knowing how to relate with the opposite sex. She's been a great teacher for me.
Wow, I may want to sit down with mom. This sounds you got some interesting insights.
Yeah, no, she may not know it. She may not even believe it, but she's been a great mentor in terms of um, how to relate, to to the opposite sex, how to relate to a man. And she treats my dad very well. And um, it'd be success for me if I was half the woman that she was. So she's a great woman.
Wow, that's a
Yes,
huge compliment.
she is.
I know you probably didn't expect this, but I'll ask you if you
Yeah.
had a quick message you'd like to share with mom right now, what would you tell her?
She's done the best she could, and she did a great job with what she had.
Wonderful,
Right, with the tools she had, she did a great job.
fantastic,
I'm proud of her.
and I'm sure she's proud of you too. Reciprocal, fantastic. Let's talk about your journey about helping Black people in mental health.
Right.
Where did that journey start? Did it find you or did you find it?
It's funny. When I was in Ghana, when I was about 5, my dad used to drive us to school, and we used to have to pass this junction. And I used to see not a lot of, but I used to see homeless men, and just men that weren't mentally well. And as a child, I used to wonder how they got to that point. So that's always sort of stuck with me. Um, After university, I didn't go straight into psychology. I went into business, which is my first love. We'll talk about that after.
Sure.
But I've always been interested in the human psyche, like what drives people, what makes people lose control of their mental.
Where did that passion come from?
It's as I said, when I was 5, I remember being 5 and just looking at the man on the street and thinking, how did you get there? I just remember being 5, like a little kid, and having that thought process, like how do people get to this point, right, where they lose control of their lives? And so that's sort of been the undertone of my thought process over the years. Again, it's not, I took psychology in school, but it wasn't um, where I went to directly after university. But I've always been curious about what drives humans, what drives people, what makes people. I remember being living in our apartment when I was 11, 12. I came home and there was a man on my floor that committed suicide. I remember being 11 and 12 and thinking, life is so good. Why would someone want to commit
Wow.
suicide? But I remember thinking that, like, why would someone ever want to take their life?
Mm.
Right. So I was a really curious child and curious about people. Right. I was really curious about people and what drives people. And that stayed with me. Right. That stayed with me.
Wow.
And
That's
it continues to stay with me, continues to
sure.
evolve. Right. Because we never arrive. It's a process. Right.
For many people that I respect, one of the qualities they have is curious. And I always say, like, I love people that have the ABCs, not just the alphabet, but ABC, always be curious.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fantastic.
It's always at the back of my mind. It's always been there. It's always been. But I guess I said I wasn't called to it early in my life, but I found myself back in that place. So I'm glad to be here.
There's a lot of education that you've been through.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I want to ask, when you got your accreditation to do
right.
what you do now, do you remember that moment?
I do.
That could you share that with us?
Um, it's funny, but I've always sort of been that person in my group that was always helping people, wanting to solve problems, thinking she's God. I've always had a
I
Messiah
love that.
complex.
Okay.
I've always
Okay.
had a Messiah complex. So yeah, it was great. I was glad that I was done. I was glad that the school, you know, portion
W-
of it was over and I could
Was
actually
mom
delve
there
into.
at your graduation?
No, she wasn't. She was back home,
Oh,
unfortunately. So
oh,
yeah, but she was rooting for me from the sidelines. But yeah, it was a great event. But again, I think this is sort of something that I was always sort of doing. So this was just, that formal permission to do it in a way where I could get paid, but that I could be looked upon as someone who really was certified to offer that type of service.
upon your graduation, was it your focus to serve Black people?
No,
Oh,
I wanted to serve hurting people.
okay.
Wanted to serve hurting people, um, and that's where it started. It's sort of taken turns for me.
Sure.
Right now that's sort of my area and the space I'm in. But it started with men. It
Okay,
started with
let's land on that. It's very interesting. You remind me of another close associate now of mine named Dr. Alicia Watkins, who's based in the US.
mm,
And she has her PhD in social work. She's also been a Black couples counselor for over 15 years. She's
right.
also a certified trauma counselor. And she's very passionate about Black men. Where
Hmm.
does the pat you related the story many years ago when you were younger about Black men and saying, well, how did they get here?
Right.
What keeps your passion to want to serve and uplift Black men?
Because I see that they're a demographic that have a lot of pain,
Hmm.
and there's not a lot of outlet for them. There's not a lot of outlets for them.
Hmm.
And I guess I identify with the fact that my dad's a Black man, my brother's a Black man, and I'm around Black men, and I have a lot of natural compassion for for men. In some cases, even bias, because I do think that they have a lot more burden to carry, or a different type of burden to carry that often they don't receive the level of compassion that I think is warranted and the support that's needed to help them through it. So, what drives this continual passion is I think we're still not there. I mean, there's pain, there's new pain, there's old pain, there's yesterday's pain, there's today's pain, and we're complicated. We're complicated, and there's no easy answer. It's not a black or white answer. It's not a black or white issue, right? So again, there has to be, for me, um, I don't believe you can be all things to everybody. So I do believe in specializations. I think sometimes it's better to be good at what you're at and get better at it than to try and spread yourself and try and be a generalist trying to offer all things to all people. So that's where it started for me.
Right.
Right.
You now say you're focused on Blacks and mental health, but it wasn't always that case.
No, no. Actually, I went from working in an organization for another employer to working primarily in anger management. Probably 90% of my caseload were men. And after a time, I realized, my God, everybody was graduating saying, I wish I had these skills as a child. So we founded Positive Kids. So I worked with kids for, I don't know, 7, 8 years. Um, and it's there again that I was inspired to uh, look at supports for black kids. And this is where I got into the space. So it's been a bit of a circle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. And we need to have you back just to talk about anger management. That's a
So show it
whole
itself.
yeah, that's a whole conversation. One of the things I did previously, I was a program coordinator at Canada's only father-focused family center, and
Okay.
there was so much demand for anger management courses, facilitation, and there wasn't a lot,
And there
and
still
there
isn't.
there still isn't, and and it's still such a high need service.
And
So definitely, I would love if you're up to have a conversation offline and maybe bring it online about the whole area of men or black men and anger management, because it's something that's not really discussed that often, but it's very prevalent.
and that would be a very powerful conversation.
Yeah, because there's a number of men out there, not only black but men, period, that are screaming and nothing's coming out.
Yeah, and misunderstand the purpose reasoning of their anger, and so they don't do what's required of them, so they stay angry,
Yes,
right? So
yes,
that's
and
that's that's, that's a big conversation.
yeah, that's my alleged mind has an idea of maybe having a panel of you talk
Yeah.
about that, because for one person to chat about, that's a lot of energy, and maybe getting a panel conversation about black men and anger management.
I think it's a worthwhile discussion, though, Dr.
Oh
Vibe.
no, it's gonna happen. It's not worthwhile. It's gonna happen. I just wonder. It's just the question is, are you gonna join me or not? Because I'm gonna ask. I'm already asking you. I'm giving you the live ask.
100%, of course, because I'll
Okay.
be honest, it's one of the reasons, it's killing us. Our own anger, our own self-destructive tendencies are killing us. So it's certainly a discussion that I think is warranted. So yeah, I'm up for it.
Check. So, I always like to have part twos or extra conversations. So I'm going to start working that in the next 24 to 36 hours. I'm going to reach out to Dr. Alicia and bring you both on. You don't realize, because I got to do things in the moment, because in a day or so, you'll say, who's Dr. Vibe? Who's that
Right,
guy?
right.
Right.
No,
So
I get
I
it.
gotta get on it. So let's talk about how you got involved with Black Mental Health Canada, and also a little bit about the organization. So first things first, how did you become president of Black Mental Health Canada?
Yeah. So when we found Positive Kids in 2015, we ran it for, I don't know, 6 years. And what I saw that was concerning was a lot of families coming into our clinic seeking help for their kids, and many Black families not being able to afford services. And again, it's a private clinic, so unfortunately, it's not as if I could say, here, you know what, we can give it to you for free. It wasn't so. So we were turning away a lot of Black families. And for me, mental
Mm,
health is, it's not one of those things you ought to have to qualify for. Do you get what I mean? It's such a critical part of our being. And so it's so timely that if someone is struggling, they need to get that help at that critical time. And so if they don't get that help, there's such dire implications. So reason why Black mental health was birthed was actually a need to try and support Black families who couldn't afford traditional services. So to try and subsidize them. By getting
mm,
into this space, we realize there's
mm-hmm.
so much more than just an affordability. And I'm sure you continue with your questions, but yeah, that's how it was birthed. That's how it came to life. Is really it was supposed to be an organization that was hoping to be able to offer services to families of children who had mental
Yep.
health concerns,
Yep.
and be able to offer subsidy or sliding scale. So, no child could be turned away
Mm.
or would be turned away.
I just want to go back to something, just some of the conversation earlier.
Right?
I get a chance to have conversations with many different individuals, especially in this field. Do you feel that mental health help
Right.
should be a right?
Um, I don't know if I'd call it a right, but there shouldn't be any barriers that
Okay,
stops someone from getting help. It's
agreed.
kind of like how we have OPIP that allows people to seek or to have medical coverage when they have medical
Right.
illnesses, diabetes, or I don't know if I would be extreme in saying that it should be a right, but it certainly shouldn't be something that's hindered. There shouldn't be any barriers um, that get in the way of someone needing psychological support. And I would say that for any type of health support, there shouldn't be. But we live in the real world. I have to be realistic. There is, right?
Hmm.
And if I had my way, and if I ran this country, it wouldn't be so. But that's not the case.
Got it.
As it
How
stands,
long?
there is. As it stands, there is.
Okay, sorry to interrupt. How long
Yeah.
has the organization been around for?
Black Mental Health Canada. Yeah, we started at the beginning of 2019, right before George Floyd, and right before the
Wow.
pandemic.
Okay. Okay. So
Isn't that interesting, right?
yeah, isn't that, and walk us through the early days and walk us through how this has become a heightened concern
Right.
since those days.
Yeah, it's ironic that we just so happened to be strategically positioned during the whole George Floyd, uh, you know, situation. Because up until then, I'll be honest, people weren't comfortable calling and asking for a Black therapist. It wasn't a thing. Like it just didn't happen. If anything, we shied away from that, right? Um, Blacks weren't comfortable reaching out to organizations seeking help for mental health issues. But after post George Floyd, things have really changed. And pre-pandemic, there really weren't a lot of Black practitioners. I mean, there were some, but now I'm kind of happy to see there's a lot more churning out from the schools. But yeah, I mean, at the height of the George Floyd movement, there was a lot of compassion for Blacks and their mental health, their mental well being. So we got a lot of attention that year. We got a lot of attention that year. We got a lot of people reaching out to us, wanting to hear our take on sort of what happened and how um, that situation in the US plays out in Canada, or if it does play out in Canada, right? We just had a lot of compassion from organizations, communities, individuals, just realizing that mental health was a real issue within our communities. And I think we ourselves started to see, you know what, we've got some issues, we've got some things going on. So, we had more Blacks reaching out for services. Things have changed for me. It's like 360. Like it's a whole different world we live in now, post COVID, post George Floyd. We have now more people, more than ever, graduates coming out of colleges,
Congratulations.
mental health programs. Yeah, we have more people requesting Black identified therapists. We have more, want there to be more Black programming,
Hmm.
more culturally sensitive programming,
Hmm.
or work and services provided by practitioners. So this is kind of where we're at right now. Black mental health is really pushing that agenda. Is Blacks we have different problems than other communities, and that's okay. I'm not apologizing for it. We have different issues. In 2016, um, research came out that 27% of women between the ages of 28 and 59 were single mothers, in comparison to 10% of other communities.
Yep.
We have different problems. We have
Absolutely.
different concerns. So, and then there's many other statistics that really show that Blacks were suffering uh, at at higher rates
Yep.
and for different reasons.
Yep.
And those need to be addressed. And that's what we try to do at Black Mental Health Canada.
No,
That's our
that's what you do. You're not trying, you're doing
yeah,
it.
absolutely,
You're
absolutely.
doing it.
Yes,
You're
we are
doing it.
doing it.
You are doing it.
We are doing it. We are doing it.
Absolutely. Received there. All right.
Yeah,
So what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick 90-second break.
right.
And when we come back, we're going to talk about a little bit of a document or a press release that came out
Mhm.
about Black Mental Health Canada urges collective action to tackle concerning mental health of Black Canadians. We're going to take a deep dive
Right.
into that press release because it was really good and it needs to be talked and shared about. So give us 90 seconds. We'll come back and we'll take care of the second half of this conversation. We'll see you in a few moments.
And that's what I feel like. You feel like you're the Harry Tubman of the mind.
I am.
I feel like I'm one of the Harry Tubmans of intelligent Black people. Like I want to liberate y'all from like being left behind and ignored and oblivion. Now, really, the rappers get all the attention. Seriously, does anybody else feel this way? Like ignorant Black people, they'll be all up, getting all the headlines on the Shade Room,
overly sexualized Black folks,
over like the twerkers and the just people that don't always represent the best of us. The diversity. Like people like Dr. Vibe. Like everybody should know about people like Dr. Vibe. Dr.
really
Vibe he's trying to do good work for Black people. Dr. Vibe from Toronto. Good to see you, my brother. Dr. Vibe. Everybody follow Dr. Vibe. He has a great show. He's very good at what he does, and I have a lot of respect for him. Okay, so let me hop into this. What's up, Dr. Vibe? How you doing? Everybody, if you see Dr. Vibe in the chat, everybody go follow the Dr. Vibe show. Dr. Vibe is a real smart brother and a good human being. I like the guy a lot, and he's very intelligent. And I think everyone should pay attention to what he's got going on. We got to shine the spotlight on the intelligent Black people out here that are really doing the good work. Don't just pay attention to the rappers and the celebrities. A lot of these people are losers. Your true winners are your people in your community that are really having your back. Helping us to have stronger families and a stronger community. So Dr. Vibe is in that category. So you might see the Dr. Vibe show in this chat. If you see him, please go follow him. Okay. All right. So anyway.
All right, we're back. Alice, you seem to like that little clip. You were smiling.
Yeah. Lots of good stuff. Love to hear that. Changing lives, Dr. Vibe. Thank you.
Well, doing the best we can with what we got, because what we got's good enough.
That's right.
There you go. And you're not trying, you're doing
it.
All right.
We are doing it.
Absolutely. We are doing it. And you heard a little snippet of Dr. Alicia there. That's who I want to bring you together with on a live conversation about Black men and anger management. So looking forward to it. Well, let's get to the second part of our epic conversation.
Right.
With you, Alice. And recently you released a little document. Right. Black Mental Health Canada urges collective action to tackle the concerning mental health of Black Canadians. Give us a little background on that. And for people who are watching live on the replay, I'm going to put some of the document up there. But Alice, I'll let you start it off.
Yeah, I guess, what we're trying to do is really call upon our community to recognize that the state of mental health with our people is very concerning. And we need to pay attention to it. I think most people sort of we shy away from the topics of mental health. We may know someone who struggled with mental health, but it's not our problem. We tend to distance ourselves from it, but it is a real issue, and it's touching everyone at some level. It may not be your son; it's your friend's son. It may not be your uncle. It could be your cousin's girlfriend. 1 in 8 people, 12% Canadians struggle with mental health. I think within the Black community, it's even higher. Our kids are struggling. Young Black boys are committing suicide more than ever.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. They say Black women are resilient. I don't know if it's resilient or we're choiceless, right? We're not taking care of ourselves, and we're continuing to go and go and go and go. And there's implications down the road for our health and so forth. So this call was it's an ask of the Black community to come together. I know we don't do that enough, but to come together and recognize the urgency of the state of mental health with our men, with our women, with our kids. What can we do together? How can we advocate for programming that speaks to our pain, our issues, our problems? How can we get our communities to be more aware, more cognizant of when their children, their families, their sisters and friends, how do they get to know when they're suffering? How do you recognize those warning signs, right? For me, it's important that the community start with helping themselves. Before we ask anybody else to come and say, help us, we need to be able to help ourselves. So I'm really big on ownership and taking responsibility. I'm not saying that the reasons why we're struggling mentally was caused by us. That's not what I'm saying. Some weren't. My point is, we are where we're at. And if we're going to solve the problem, you got to recognize it as a problem before you start considering solutions. And I think at this point, we're so fragmented, we don't even agree it's a problem.
Yeah, that's...
We don't even agree it's a problem.
Yeah.
Right? And so unless we come to understand mental illness, when we're talking about mental well-being, there's all these words that we use, right? Mental health issues. We mix up the brain and the mind, thinking that it always has to be something's wrong with your brain. But sometimes we're not talking about the brain. Sometimes we're talking about the mind, the part of you that reasons and understands and makes sense of the world. That isn't working right. You're not believing properly about yourself. You're not believing the right things about yourself. And that can cause problems, right? We have messages, wrong messaging that's coming from different parts of our community, saying things like pray it away, or sleep on it, or not recognizing that mental health should be respected as any other part of our being. You can't disconnect your head from your body. So if we're struggling mentally, we're going to be struggling emotionally. And if we're struggling emotionally, we're going to be struggling behaviorally. We're going to make decisions that are not working for us. We're going to be making destructive decisions. We're going to be engaging in relationships that aren't helpful. And that's going to make us feel worse and think worse about ourselves. So the cycle continues. So what am I saying? I'm saying at the end of the day, no one organization or one person can shoulder this burden. It's important that it be a community initiative. And I know that the Black community itself, we're already divided, right? You've got Jamaicans, you've got Trinis, you've got Nigerians. I mean, there's things that divide us as a Black people. But at the end of the day, we're all Black. And for that very reason that we walk around with the skin, we share some common problems. And I think it's important that we all come together, put our issues to the side, whatever issues we have with each other,
Ego.
and address the issue at hand. We're not doing well. Just because we don't talk about it doesn't mean that we're doing well. We're not doing well. We're not doing well. And you won't notice that unless you start paying attention, looking at the numbers, or start asking people questions, right? We're not doing well. Yeah. And no one is exempt. No one is exempt from this. We're not doing well. Men are not doing well. Women are not doing well. Kids are not doing well. And
it's interesting. Go ahead.
Sorry, Dr. No, I'm done. I could go on. I'm done.
No, I'm gonna let you continue on just a second. You mentioned about statistics in this report that you shared here online. The Mental Health Commission of Canada highlighted alarming findings from the 2020 Statistics Canada survey on mental health disparities during COVID-19. Among key statistics, 27.9% of Black visible minority respondents reported fair/poor self-rated mental health, exceeding the rate among white respondents of 22.9%. 32% of Black visible minority respondents experienced symptoms consistent with moderate severe generalized anxiety disorder, compared to 24.2% of their white counterparts. And then 37.5% of Black visible minority respondents reported COVID-19 related financial insecurity, surpassing the rate among white respondents at 22.1%. Let me ask from your lens, and I'm just pulling some of this out, and I have shared the link for those who are watching live on the replay. I have shared the link in your comments section of whatever platform you're watching. You can click on that link and look at the report. Also, you can click and get the link for Black Mental Health Canada also. What are some of the impacts you still see post-pandemic amongst many Black Canadians?
Well, I mean, I cannot, like, financially, I mean, the state of where, I mean, right now, a lot of individuals are struggling with home insecurity, just not necessarily having a place to stay. And to magnify that, what we're finding even is that when Blacks are looking for spaces to rent, they have to go against people who look at them and say, hey, listen, I'm not sure if I want to rent to you. So that's an added stressor that other communities don't have. So everybody's complaining about the amount that they have to pay for rent or to mortgage your home and so forth. We're dealing with second layer issues. So yeah, it's hard to find housing. But then when we do get housing, we're discriminated against. Another stressor. Um, I think that COVID shifted a lot of things for us, job-wise for a lot of people. A lot of people were left having to figure out, do I want to stay in this job? Or some people weren't given a choice. They were left jobless. Some people lost their homes. Families were broken up over the pandemic. What does that mean for, children, right? The impacts are many. Dr. Vibe, it's hard to sort of list them, but the impacts are many. I just know that right now we're in a worse state mentally than we were before the pandemic. And I would actually
say that again. Say that again. I want people to hear that.
Yeah, we're in a worse state. We're in a worse state than we were.
Why? What is the cause? What's the root cause of that?
Well, first and foremost, I think the world shifted in terms of what we used to find solace in before. We can't find solace in now, right? Things have changed. Families, as I said, families have shifted, jobs have changed, economic situations have changed. But I also think people have become anxious now because they realize, not become anxious, but perhaps the anxiety has now become more prevalent because people don't feel that security in their livelihood anymore. And so anxiety has really increased within the Black community since the pandemic. A lot of people are struggling with anxiety before. It's not to say people didn't struggle with anxiety before, but I think the reasons have shifted as to why they're struggling with anxiety. And I think people are coming out more to say, hey, listen, I'm struggling. So we're seeing more of that. People are more open about their mental health struggles now, which I think is adding to the numbers that are coming up and saying that we're more anxious. I think whereas before people were less likely to share that information, I think people are more willing to share that information now. I'm more open to that. So which I'm really happy for.
Yes.
Right. Which I'm really, really happy for, because once upon a time we weren't having these conversations. But I'll be honest, the world has changed. This is not the same world we lived in prior to the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I could go on. It's not one thing or another. It's many, many things. Many things have changed. Right?
I see that you shared with us that a lot of more people are sharing, but are the numbers of ears available there to hear them?
That's another issue, right?
Yeah,
So
the ears and hearts and minds there to hear them.
Yeah, I think, prior to the pandemic, there were even fewer people that looked like me that were offering these services. When I graduated in my class, I was very much tokenized. There weren't very many people that were graduating that looked like me. But as I said, since then, things have changed. And so we have more people graduating from the schools now, which I'm very grateful for. But yes, that's a huge problem, right? If I'm coming to you and you're clueless about what I'm saying, or why I'm saying what I'm saying, I got to explain to you the basics of the issue without even getting to the problem. That's going to really sort of get in the way of me wanting to continue having, services with you. I remember seeing a therapist myself during the pandemic. I was going through my own personal situation, and I made a comment to her during our session, and she was clueless, and she responded with something that was really, she was trying to be empathic, but she just sounded very empty. And I know why she didn't connect with what I was saying. I get it. She just didn't get it. And so for me, I sort of got a firsthand idea of what people feel when they don't feel like you can get what I'm going through. Mm-hmm. That in itself magnifies my trauma, my stress, right? Because it's so healing when I come to you and I get that you get me.
Yeah.
So then we can spend the time talking about how to help me through it,
right?
Versus just me trying to articulate my problem. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So if I get that you get it, then that's our starting point in the conversation, right? Absolutely. The rest of the time can be spent helping to direct, explore, challenge me. But God, if I got to spend the majority of the time just getting you to understand the basics of my issue, I'm not going to be too keen to continue the therapy process. And why there needs to be more people that like me in therapy rooms. Right.
A gentleman who I respect, he has said to me, well, it's actually two statements I want to bounce off you and get your thought process back. First of all, A young lady told me a little while back saying that every Black person should have a therapist. I think you approve on that. Why do you agree with that statement?
Dr. Vibe, as Africans, we've always had counselors. It may have looked differently from the counseling, the formal counselor that you see today. Like I remember growing up, every weekend, there were people at my house seeking my dad's advice or direction on some type of matter. This happens every day, all day in Africa. It's not a counseling, being a counselor is not a European concept. We've always had counselors, right? People who we sought for wisdom, for direction, for clarity, right? Because we believed in the power of age, someone who's more aged, someone who's more experienced. And so we've sort of come to this part of the world, different system, and we've sort of not necessarily abandoned that process, but it's now formalized. But as Blacks, we don't trust the systems. We don't trust each other. So we're very ambivalent about sharing the deeper parts of our pain with people. And so what's happening is we're living with repressed pain. We're living with our pain, and that's not helping us. That's an anger management issue that we'll talk about later on.
Remember, I told at the beginning, that's a separate conversation. Don't tease people. We're teasing people. We're not going a deep dive today.
Right. Yeah, we weren't designed. Yeah. We weren't designed to burden ourselves with emotional pain and not have a way to release it. And that's essentially what counseling is. It's just me really venting. It's very cathartic. It very much is cathartic for me to share with you what's going on inside of me. And it's very healing. It's very healing. Unfortunately, we've made it a professional thing that you got to pay for. And so it's taken away the value that it should have, right? And it's seen now as a Western thing, but it really isn't. It really isn't, right? It really isn't. And it's a very good thing. So I agree with that young lady. Everybody should have a therapist, someone who understands you, someone you feel safe with, right? Someone who will sit with you in your pain and just be quiet if they have nothing to say, but there's so much taking place in that silence, right? Sometimes that's what we need.
Second statement I'd love to get your take on, that trauma with Black people is as big a challenge, if not bigger challenge, than racism.
Right. I think the reason why people can say that is because, for me, racism is a type of trauma. But above and beyond sort of the race-based trauma, there's other things that we're burdened with daily, right? Because of the conditions we find ourselves in, because we have lower income than other demographics, because our families look different from other demographics, because we have different opportunities than other demographics. We just have a different set of problems, unique problems that are unique to us. And when we talk about trauma within the Black community, we're not saying other communities don't have trauma. We're saying some of the reasons why we're traumatized looks very different from the reasons why you're traumatized. Our problems are very different. And so our solutions should look different. And if it's our problems, we ought to find ways to address our problems. No one on the outside is going to come tell you how to fix your problem if they can't relate to it. Mm-hmm. So what am I saying? I'm saying at the end of the day that Blacks continue to suffer trauma every single day because of the life that we live, because of the conditions we find ourselves in, because of the problems we face daily, not daily. These are daily problems we have because we happen to be Black. And it's not necessarily historical. It's not necessarily past. It's in the present. So we're never not going through or struggling with things. So yeah, I would agree with you.
Excellent. I want to come back to your wonderful organization and
Right.
just share with our family here some of the services that you offer at your organization.
So we do a lot of work in education, really where Black and mental health intersect. We do a lot of education on any topic really. Then an organization will come to us and say, hey, listen, we need some support teaching our staff or teaching our directors or teaching our whomever. So we've done a lot of work on educating the external community, but also educating our community. That's where my heart is. My heart is really helping Black folks to understand what mental health is. What does it look like? How can you recognize it in your own home, with your own children, with your friends? You know, how do you support people going through that? How do you not make it worse?
Got you. Got you.
How do
You
you
know,
not make it worse?
one of the many things I love about you, you find time to laugh because it can be very challenging at times.
It can.
But finding the space to laugh about it is very powerful for me that I'm receiving through you. You said you do a lot of advocacy. Has that continued to be in high demand? Because we're now a few years from George Floyd, and from my lens, you're hearing less about equity, diversity. Now, are you still getting, here's my question, the requests you're getting for your services from the Black and non-melanated community, both groups, is it still high or has it gone down a little bit?
I think that the spotlight is off some.
Yeah,
It's still relevant.
yeah,
It's not as relevant as it was 3 years ago.
obviously.
But I think, as I said, there was a shift in the world when George Floyd happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I think organizations are moving to a place where they're recognizing that there are real issues in the workplace regarding race. And I think there's a desire and a need to want to make things right. Doesn't mean that it's gonna roll out in that same way, but there is that desire, and that's what we're seeing. We're seeing that people want to make change. Now, where that change will come to fruition, I don't know, but we are being sought out.
Good.
And that hasn't changed. I think in a sense, we're getting more sought out for education, right? People want to know more, not just with the Black community, with the Indigenous community. I think there's just a shift to want to be more inclusive. So we thank God for that. So that hasn't changed. But again, I think that whole compassion that happened with George Floyd, that sort of diminished some, right?
Right.
There's a lot of guilt donations. I don't know if that's a word.
Yeah. I got you. So some people call it guilt money.
Guilt money.
Guilt
and we
money.
saw that firsthand that year when it happened. Okay. So that's sort of diminished, but that's okay, right? There's still people who continue to support the cause, and we're happy about that. And then we also have a directory, in that we are hoping that will be sort of the go-to place. Anytime someone's looking for a Black therapist. Again, it's still very much in its infancy, but our hopes is that it is the most robust directory for Black identified therapists. So that is our goal and our intention. It is going to be.
I like that. That's like there's got some behind it. All right.
That's right.
Guinean behind it. I like that. All right. You have an event coming up December 9th.
Right.
In just a few days.
Right.
Do share.
Again, yeah, it's a gala to celebrate, what the organization and allies and everybody in the space, what we've been able to do with Black mental health, but also to share what are the action plan for the years to come. We've got some great ideas we want to put out there. and not just for us as an organization, for the community as a whole. We want to make sure we spread the word on what's available, what's possible, what works, what doesn't. So, we want to reduce the likelihood that people will say, I don't know where to go. I don't know what services, to seek. We want to close those gaps. And so this gala aims to share some ideas that we have, some programs that we hope to implement and to get funded in 2024. Again, that's going to require the help of the community. We're doing our best to try and seek funding for those programs, but it is a community effort. It is they're programs that's going to require a lot of resources. And so the gala is really just to share that, what we've done and what we're hoping to do. So we're hoping to have a good time, celebrate, and dream
and
together.
Watch Alice dance. Yes.
Watch Alice dance.
Okay. Okay. And again, for people who are watching live on the replay, I've got the information, the link on the screen for you to purchase tickets, but it's also in the comments section on whatever platform you're watching this live or on the replay. So, Alice, as we start winding down our conversation today, what are a few things? When you address the concerns of Black mental health to organizations,
Mm-hmm.
what are some suggestions you would have for them?
For the organizations?
For organizations, we're going to look at different groups, but just organizations in general. What are some suggestions that you would have, or best practices, which you could give them so they can say, well, we don't know how to do that. Let's contact Alice. So here we go.
Yeah, I think be intentional about the programming that you're offering individuals. I know that, when you're a mental health practitioner, you're sort of given this sort of, invisible manual. This is what you do when this happens. This is what you do when this happens. But the issues that Blacks face are not unique issues, and they don't speak to everybody. And so it's very important that we be intentional about providing services that work for us. And again, not to be ashamed about that. Like, it's okay. It's okay that we do things a little bit different. It's okay that we don't fit in the box. We never have, and we never will.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It doesn't make us bad. And so it means that for some practitioners, they may struggle with that because, again, they're used to operating out of a certain training
Lens.
But we're finding more and more that the more you understand your client and the more you speak to their pain and the more you offer your ear and your direction in a meaningful way, the more they're receptive to the process, the more they'll want to come back. But if you're sort of just checking off the boxes because that's what you're used to, I don't think that we're going to get closer to helping our people who are, as I mentioned, very much in need. There is a need, but for them to seek support, they got to want to feel like you can help them. And if that's not happening, then it's a...
Okay. What about your takes for those who are non-melanated, are not Black, when it comes to Black mental health?
Well, I just appreciate when our allies come to us and say, we want to know more. Like, I love that curiosity, and I love that willingness, right, to stand alongside the work that we're doing. And I think what they can do is learn more. And that's what we've been doing for the last couple of years, right? On our workshop on Afrocentricity and racial traumas, learn what has gone into the making of a Black man. You may not be able to necessarily relate to it, but at least know what it is. Or a Black woman or a Black child. What makes their situations, their conditions, their realities a little bit different from yours? And so when they're talking, when you're hearing them, it's not you asking very, not relevant questions or saying things that make them feel like you don't get it and turned off from the process. And I think this, I would speak this for every community, right? It's not only Blacks, but every community. If you're going to work with people who are racialized, have some understanding about their makeup, right? Have an understanding about their makeup. This is what's happening in the Indigenous community. There's a lot of content, a lot of research into their makeup, their history, and all that's relevant when you're working with them, right? So the same thing for the Black community. We have our own suffering. We have our own history. We have our own circumstances, our own conditions. We even have our own unique diseases.
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah. There's certain things that we experience, illnesses that we experience, other populations don't, right? Things like fibroids, right?
Sickle cell.
And if we can be that different on that level, why is it so hard to believe that on a mental level that, we can be not necessarily wired differently, but we can come to the table with a different set of issues that need to be addressed and responded to differently. So that's all I'm saying. Just be open-minded to looking at it from a different perspective. That's all.
And then finally, what do you have to say call to action wise for Blacks, not only Canada, but Blacks worldwide when it comes to Black mental health?
Don't make people feel bad about it. Right? Like we're not at that place where it's normalized yet. I know some of us are still struggling with the whole idea of mental health. But when someone does come out and say, I'm struggling, don't make them feel bad about it. Because it's real. It's very real. It's as real as diabetes. Like when someone is depressed, they're depressed. When someone's bipolar, they have bipolar. When someone has an eating disorder, it's a real eating disorder. When someone has ADHD, it's a real thing. They're not just a badass kid. They have ADHD. Do you get what I'm saying? Right?
Got it.
These are real conditions.
Okay. Well, that's a wrap.
It's a wrap. Thank you for having me.
The pleasure is mine. You have a place here anytime.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Anytime. So as we start closing out, putting it up on the screen, we'll do in reverse order. The big event, the Black Mental Health Gala, December 9th, Embracing UBUNTU. There's the link, and it's also in your comments section wherever you're watching this live on the replay. You want to do some good reading? There's the link right there. Black Mental Health Canada urges collective action to tackle the concerning mental health of Black Canadians. Again, you see it on your screen, but it's also link-wise in the comments section wherever you're watching this live on the replay. And it all starts here, the website, blackmentalhealthcanada.ca. Alice, to you and your team, I will say this: past, present, and future success. And also, since we're in a mental health zone today, don't just manage your time, manage your energy. And remember to give yourself grace and blessings. Thank you, and looking forward to having you back. And as I said, I'm working on you and Dr. Alicia. Get ready. All right?
Can't wait.
All right. Take care. Be well and keep the faith. All right, family. Another epic conversation. That was so good. Alice was she wasn't a guest. She was a friend. There you go. So also want to give a big shout out to Anita Wong, who made this conversation happen. Anita Wong. There we go. So as we close up, a few things. Please subscribe to the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube and hit the notification button. Also follow the Dr. Vibe Show on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. Also, if you want to advertise your business, product, or service on any of the platforms that I host, please feel free to reach out to me, dr.vibe at the drvibeshow.com. This is how we close. If you don't know, you're going to learn now. Live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get smaller to get stronger. Block assumptions and aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. Love, faith, and respect. And don't just manage your time, manage your energy, and remember to give yourself grace. God bless. Peace to you all. Keep the faith and walk good. Go.